Hello guys, big hello from Hong Kong and Ashley here. I haven't chatted with you in a while, so I decided why not set up this LinkedIn Live and talk to you. Today is a Tuesday. I hope you guys are having a phenomenal week so far. And one of the highlights of my day was a chat with a friend based also here in Asia. And he basically, very interestingly, he started commenting about my business and gave a little bit of different spin on what and how could I do in terms of providing even more clarity on what my offering is and how we're different, etc. Very, very smart person. So he said, Ashley, let's hop on a call for like half an hour and talk about it. So today we had this call and he literally prepared the presentation, explaining me where he's coming from, and it was phenomenal. Why am I telling you that? Because this 30-minute call gave me a completely new perspective. A completely new perspective on where my business is going, where we are now, etc., etc., etc. And it is so important in modern world to constantly change your perspective, to constantly stay on top of what is going on. The world, as we all know, is changing so fast, especially if you're working in such a exciting market as China, where everything just goes bam, bam, bam. So it's important to stay on top of the happenings at the same time, to see yourself in perspective. And hence, I would like to talk to you today about this, some of the things that you can do to constantly evolve and constantly think about new ways to grow, to bring value, to have fun, right? I think my biggest learning, right? One of the biggest learnings that I had in the past 2 years, since I started doing a lot of coaching and programs, etc., entrepreneurship, marathons, etc., all these things that I've done, is that business needs to be fun. It's not just about money. It's not just about bringing value to others. It's also giving you this energy, this happiness, and making sure that it is fun. So guys, how do we actually stay on top of things, and how do we actually get the juice going? First of all, I believe that in order to give yourself a perspective, you need to have mental space. And I have read a couple of very interesting business books, and a couple of the people in the books mentioned it. So it's not a new idea, but it is something that stuck with me. Having a meeting with yourself at least once a week for at least 1 hour is crucial. Because in order to have this perspective, in order to have the big vision, in order to think, you need to give yourself the time to think. So after reading, I believe the last book that mentioned it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I might be wrong. I actually set up an alarm at 9 o'clock on a Saturday, every Saturday, and I'm having a meeting with myself, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I think what's happening with in this book, there is an example of this super big businessman, and he's basically sitting there speaking with this budding entrepreneur, and he asks his secretary to book this person in for next week or something like that. And somehow this budding entrepreneur sees in the diary of this older gentleman that he has meetings with himself scheduled throughout the day. So this guy is taking his own time with himself seriously. He's not meditating. He's not sitting there specifically brainstorming something. He just closes his eyes, sits in quiet, and has a meeting with himself, which is a genius idea. So in order to have perspective, definitely make sure that you have the time. I feel that in Asia, in China, and generally across the globe right now, we are so busy, we are rushing, we are on social media, we are everywhere. And very often people go weeks, days, weeks, months, maybe sometimes even years without stopping for a moment to think whether they are running in the right direction. The second thing, I believe you need to speak with people you trust. And here, very important definition. There are so many people out there that would want to give you advice. Do not take their advice. First rule is, if you want to take an advice from someone, make sure this is the right person to give that advice. For instance, if we're talking about, I don't know, you want to be happy with your husband or wife, only take advice from other successful couples. Do not go to the neighbor who is unhappy in her relationships and then you take advice from her. Obviously, the prism through which she's looking at relationships is broken, right? So the same thing with any kind of advice, business advice included. Take that advice from people that are extremely successful, much more successful than you are. People that are where you want to be, right? People that you respect and trust. And getting their perspective on what's going on is invaluable. And I get so many questions like, how do you reach out to those people? How can I get mentors? Whether these people are, freely available, and what's the deal? It's different for everyone. So for instance, if you are very, very lucky and you are in some sort of community that puts you directly in touch with these people, for instance, I have got a friend right now who is still a school student. He just graduated from school here, so he's 18 years old, and his father is a member of a big business community. So this guy basically hangs out with all the other cool entrepreneurs, and he already at 18 years old, before college, he already has tons of ideas what he wants to do and how he wants to set up his own business. Not because he went and said, hey, Uncle John, can you be my mentor? But because he was in that environment, he was put in that environment. There are so many clubs and locations right now, like WeWork or any kind of chambers of commerce, I do not know. Many of them offer some sort of opportunities to hang out with really cool people. So sometimes you're just lucky. Sometimes these people appear in your life for a reason. And that can be, again, through some sort of formal mentorship. For instance, you actually pay them. Yes, and this is the fastest and the best way to get a mentor. Make sure that you choose the person that really brings the best out in you, the person who will tell you the truth, the person who will push you, who will get you moving, who will get results out of you, right? But essentially get yourself that person, and the easiest way to approach them, especially if they are busy entrepreneurs, if they are really in demand, they are going to be busy and they're not going to most likely do it as a philanthropic kind of exercise. So you pay them and you get yourself mentors. Sometimes these mentors can come in a form of a video program, audio program, etc., etc. But the problem with it, you're not getting perspective, you're not getting feedback. Very often you're just getting one-way communication. So again, communicating with other people that you trust. Yeah, make sure that you choose the right ones. What else can you do? Definitely get ideas outside of your own industry. And this is where I would encourage everyone to join, I call them masterminds, and they are very, very big in some markets, right? This kind of mastermind group where you find people that are extraordinary in your network. You bring them together and you are meeting, let's say every month, you are talking about each other's business for a couple of minutes, let's say 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and each person can ask a specific question that is currently on his or her mind, or you can share an update, or you can have an ask to the group. And there are representatives of all different industries in the mastermind. The masterminds can be from 3 people to sometimes 15, 20, whatever people, but I think the most effective groups are about 5 to 10 people. Definitely an amazing thing to do, because you're getting so much inspiration from all these other industries. How are other people doing things? And you don't even need to be directly communicating with them. Sometimes you can get inspiration from other industries by just watching them, looking into case studies, watching a documentary program, but you just need to focus your mind on, wow, what can I learn from this? How can I apply it in my own business? Wow, there is this trend. How can I actually make it work for me? And I think that's what China is doing so well. So many Chinese entrepreneurs, they are literally trained to be gladiators. They're constantly alert. They are constantly looking for ways to improve, to adapt, to move ahead, to make sure that they are, in perspective. And these are a few ways to do that. Of course, in order to stay in perspective, I would say you also need to look back and a little bit think and compare yourself and the state of your industry and where your company is, and also plan ahead. A lot of people do the planning ahead part, but not link it with where you were, let's say, last year and where the industry is going, especially if you're a small entrepreneur. That's where, again, invite outside people. Like, I'm fortunate, I have a husband who works in the corporate world, so when on the weekend I want to have a brainstorm session, I can basically pull in this corporate expertise, and he will, advise me and bring me a lot of new ideas, a lot of new perspectives, and I will be able to see, what it is here. And I think the last point here would really be, a lot of people out there underestimate who they are, the value that they bring, and sometimes think too small. I would even say most of the times. So that's what I realized today with a friend of mine. He basically said, Ashley, you know what? You are right now too small and you're not thinking big enough, and this is not fitting, this is not fitting. And then he gave me this vision of me that I really felt that, yeah, sure, I will achieve it, but maybe you're in like 5-6 years. And he's like, 2 years. You need to be there in 2 years. And this is so inspiring. This is so exciting. And I just wish that all of you in businesses, doesn't matter whether this is your business or you have a team to run, that you lead your professional life constantly in perspective, right? Reacting to the environment, leading the environment, creating it, at the same time knowing what you're really worth, and dreaming big, thinking big, and executing, acting on your desires. And there are so many resources right now, including even these LinkedIn live sessions where you can ask questions. By the way, I haven't seen any questions yet. Let me move my laptop here and see whether there are any of you here with me today that would like to ask some questions. Maybe you have some other questions that you would like me to cover that are not currently covered in today's chat yet. I would be very, very happy to comment. And while I'm loading my LinkedIn Live and while I'm loading my comments, let me also share with you this beautiful graph. And this is actually something that I believe I shared about half a year ago. This is from my last year's Tony Robbins Business Mastery, which was a phenomenal program. Learned a lot. It's not hard skills that you're learning, but you're learning the way to think about business, because it's a business mastery. And let me tell you about the 10 stages of a business. And if you guys would like to ask any questions, please comment below. I would be very, very happy to answer. Yes, so let's take a look. 10 stages of and life cycle of business. I'm sure that some of you have already seen it before. There you are. Yeah, so basically this graph introduces the life cycle of a business. And it's a very simple idea. A business grows just as a baby does, right? You start by being born. That's when an entrepreneur basically decides to set up a business. And then you become an infant, then you become a toddler, then you become a teenager, young adult. Then at one point you reach your maturity, and this is the zone of maximization. This is your prime. This is the best time ever. And then slowly and gradually you become basically midlife kind of crisis and evaluation, right? Aging, institutionalization, and then death. So any business is going exactly through this cycle. And for some businesses, basically the goal of the business is to stay here on top of that cycle in prime for the longest time possible. Some people go here, some businesses go here and then they return to their prime, but still, no matter how long are you here, if you're not reinventing yourself continuously, sooner or later you're going to die. Eventually, this is happening pretty much so far with all businesses out there. Right. So let's take a look. Why is it so important to understand this graph? Because the problems that you're having in your business can actually be predicted. For instance, if you know that you're right now an infant, you're going to have very different problems if you are right now in the young adult stage. And because you know your stage and because you're honest about the stage your business is on, you are able to plan better, to anticipate what's to come, and to see clearly where to go next, right? And I found that this was so extremely valuable when I was at this Business Mastery event. So I wanted to share it once again with all of you guys. So birth, as I mentioned, is a very, very simple concept. The moment you decide to start a business, the business is born. The second stage, which is infancy, I believe is also extremely interesting. So basically, this is your survival mode. You're trying to survive, and your business requires, just like with a tiny, tiny baby, a lot of energy, a lot of time, constant stimulation, constant entertainment, etc., etc. So this is the major problems here are, of course, money, and you are definitely the primary caregiver and caretaker at this very stage. Then the second stage is a toddler. So once you become a toddler, what happens? You can walk. And when the business can walk on its own, what happens? Even more problems happen. So here you would see that right now there is some sort of management team. So it's not just a one-man band. There's a management team, but everything still relies on you and your core expertise, right? So your problems are also cash flow. Cash flow is a big concern. And this is basically where you definitely see a lot more pressure as well, because you've got, higher bills to pay and you're just trying to set up a system. And then you go into the teenage years. So the difference with teenage years is basically when you become a teenager, it's a little bit like you're getting yourself a car. Hence there is this car logo over here, the driving wheel logo. But essentially you feel a little bit overconfident, like, ooh, cash flow is no longer a problem. So that's the biggest difference between a toddler and a teenager, cash flow. If the cash flow is not a problem, you're most likely a teenager. And that's also the time when, the leaders become a bit arrogant, they don't attend meetings, they feel that they've arrived, that their product is so phenomenal and amazing, etc., etc., etc. For many businesses, that's also the time when you move to a cooler office, get yourself a cool car, or hire a masseuse to come to the office 3 times a week. So all these are, of course, teenage years. And the trouble is imminent. Yeah, if you are so reckless, then your business is definitely going down the drain at one point, and there's no clarity, there's no strategy, so it's basically going down, right? The next stage, if you are able to handle your teenage years, you're going to move up to the young adult. And the young adult is the stage where, again, cash flow is not a problem. And at this stage, you start thinking so much more and anticipating the future. You start planning. And you limit what you focus on. You outsource, you let other people to focus on the areas of their expertise. Right? So you limit what you yourself focus on. And success for you is not just, okay, cash in the pocket today or tomorrow. Success for you is long-term success. You're thinking about long-term strategy and game. And that's where you take your business a lot more seriously, and that's where the true identity of the company is indeed born. Then you go here into this zone of maximization or maturity. This is your prime. This is where you are reaping the rewards of your hard work. So everything goes smoothly. You've got a wonderful team. You consistently meet the needs of your clients, customers, team. You get financial benefits, of course. Organization knows very clearly who they are, where they're going, why, and how to get there. And of course, sales and profits are growing. So this is a developed system. This is essentially at the top of this mountain. That's where all of us definitely want to be as long as possible. At one point, however, if you're not, if you're not careful enough, if you're not spending enough time right here, you will basically go into this midlife evaluation. Right? It's a little bit like midlife crisis. So at one point you're also asking yourself like, why, what's going on? But basically that's the point where things start breaking down. And basically you start changing the way you see things, right? And here you have to innovate or you're dead. That's it. That's the point. The moment you feel that, gears are not really turning so well, when not everybody within your organization are at the very, very top of their game, that's where you either innovate or you die, right? So if you are lucky and you caught it at the right time and you innovated and you reinvented yourself again and you're back in this zone. If not, if you're not lucky enough, you go into aging. So basically aging means just this breakdown accelerates, it just goes faster. And the focus usually goes into, I am the victim, the industry is changing too fast, the world economy is bad, my industry is, dying, people are bad, So you play the victim very often, psychologically speaking, and as a company at this stage. And you begin to either attack or take blame. And again, a lot of talented people that have been with you throughout this whole journey start leaving. And right after that, institutionalization is basically when either your company is kept alive by government or some external stimulus, or it's, on auto run, going towards graveyard, right? And then finally death. Death means there's no more people to support it, and basically the company shuts down. So I hope that this beautiful wheel of life of a company makes sense to you. Let me repeat again, why do I want to introduce you this wheel of life? Because each organization is going through this circle. And of course, we want to stay on top in the zone of maximization the longest. When you know which stage you're on, not wish to be, but truly which stage of business are you on, you're able to anticipate the problems so much better. And in terms of problems, let me tell you that there are 3 types of problems in this world, especially when it comes to business, and actually when it comes to personal life, perhaps as well. So 3 types of problems in this world. There are normal problems, there are abnormal problems, and there are pathological problems. So what is a normal problem? For instance, in this case, if your business is at the age of an infant or a toddler, let's imagine you are a toddler and you are, peeing in your pants, right? You wear diapers, you're peeing in your pants. Is this normal? Yes, you are a toddler. This is a normal problem. Now let's imagine you are a teenager and you're peeing in your pants. Is this a normal problem or abnormal problem? It is abnormal problem. There's something wrong. We really need to act now. But if you are, let's say, a middle-aged person and you are still peeing in your pants, This is already pathological, right? So when it comes to business, for instance, we can say people are leaving, there's no structure, or you've got cash flow problems. Looking at where you are, your peeing in your pants will be different, right? And you can see whether you are right now, let's say here, and your problem at this stage, some of these problems will be normal, some of them will be abnormal, the ones that you need to attack right away, and some problems will be pathological. So the pathological problems in your business, the ones that shall not belong to this stage of your current development, are the ones that are going to kill you. And abnormal problems are the ones that you need to, resolve right away, because something is going wrong in that area. And the normal problems, when they come, you smile and wave and say, hey, great, this new thing appeared in my life, and this is absolutely normal because we are at this particular stage of business. So once again, guys, I hope that this makes sense to you. I keep refreshing the page here on the right side to see whether there's any comments. So far, I don't see any comments. Well, then, if there's no comments and none of you want to ask any questions or start any discussion, then I'm going to thank you once again for being with me today. I see that almost 50 people are watching me right now online. Thank you very, very much for spending this 30 minutes with me. I hope you learned something. Today we talked about perspective. Today we talked about the stages of business. Today we talked about the problems in your business, normal, abnormal, and pathological. My big message to you is make sure that you stay on top of the change. Don't be afraid of it. Make sure that you are growing. If you're not growing, then you are dying. If your business is not evolving, then it is dying. There's nothing in between. So make sure that you stay on top and that you dream big enough. And in order to dream big enough, I encourage you to stay in perspective. To do that, go out there, explore other industries, consult people you trust and who are where you want to be in the future, right? Get yourself mentors that can also give you that feedback. And make sure that, again, you have meetings with yourself where you can think, strategize, and basically have this headspace in order to be most effective and in your most productive self. Once again, thank you very much, guys. I'm sending you a big hello from Hong Kong, and we're gonna see each other next time. Cheers.